Good to go. All right. Good morning, everyone. And I'm back after a well deserved break. Good morning to all of you. And I'm hoping to have a very informative program. We have with us today Dr. Baptiste, our very own psychiatrist from OKEU and St. Lucia Wellness Center. And she is here to present on family support for persons who have suicidal ideation or families who have gone through having a suicide. Before we move on into our program, I would like to shout out all my listeners out there, even persons as far as the United States who are listening in, Human Services, Soufriere, Viewfort, Castries, also staff and members at the OKU hospital, especially the psychosocial department. And a special shout out to Miss Sanchez Joseph. It was your birthday yesterday. Happy birthday to you. Hope you're still enjoying. All right. Thank you for having me back here. I'm going to move over to let Dr. Shabatis introduce herself, give us a little about her before we actually move on. Go ahead, Dr. Shabatis.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Naomi Baptiste. I am a psychiatrist. I am currently based at the Millennium Heights Medical Complex. I have been working as a psychiatrist from 2004, since I graduated as a psychiatrist. And it is a pleasure to give back and to help people who have mental health. So today is recognized, today is the 10th of September, and it is a day that's recognized worldwide as World Suicide Prevention Day. So I don't know if Miss Bondiemaitre wants to speak more about this, or she wants me to give a little information with regards to World Suicide Prevention Day.
You can go ahead, Dr. Shabatis. We love hearing your
Okay,
voice.
okay, thank you. So Suicide Prevention Day is a day that is recognized on the 10th of September every year. And it is an opportunity to raise awareness to everybody on suicide, and also to stimulate people to remember every year, at least that on that day you can remember, at least you would have a few months after that, maybe more, to remember that you have to be aware of suicide. So it was established in 2003 by the World Health Organization in collaboration with the International Association of Suicide Prevention. And it is every year that is celebrated. So I'm happy today I don't want to say to celebrate, but we can't say celebrate, because if we celebrate in the prevention of suicide, that is something to celebrate. And it is very important that countries and communities are aware of that the likelihood of suicide, so that people can be aware, and then people can not stigmatize it, because the more awareness there is, the less stigma there will be in terms of suicide.
Most definitely, because indeed it has been a taboo, especially here in St. Lucia. You've heard persons say, "Sue se chwe chwe koi makali lete mayo, mana ye po feibi."
Mm-hmm.
And before,
Mm-hmm.
persons who committed suicide were not even allowed to have their funerals in churches and all. That's how badly persons looked at it. But then, I was reading and realized, well, it would be international, that suicide is the third leading cause of death among
Mm-hmm.
15 to 29-year-olds. And that
Yeah.
is very amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that now it is being taken more seriously. And of course, we are working tirelessly to see that that rate is reduced. Okay. So
Because
I would
generally somebody 15 to 24 years, generally most people 15 to 24 years don't die. Okay, so the third leading cause of death, that's very significant, and that is very serious. And I think it's a public health issue, and governments need to pay attention to that.
most definitely. Do you think, Dr. Jabatis, because recently I attended, I think it was sometime last year, either earlier this year or last year, I attended a seminar where suicide was looked on to being decriminalized. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good initiative, and I think we had a meeting earlier this year with some people from, I think, the PAHO or World Health Organization, who
Mm-hmm.
are looking internationally to try to canvass so that suicide can be decriminalized. Because if somebody commits an act as a result of illness, I don't think there's a reason to criminalize it and to let them have consequences, criminal consequences, because it's not something like deliberately. It's not murder. It's not homicide, but it's suicide. So many times, the reason for people committing suicide are varied. 95% of people who commit suicide have an underlying mental health disorder, whether it is diagnosed or not. And one of the key reasons why people commit suicide is because they're depressed. And depression is a mental health illness. It is not, because many times people look stigmatize even depression. And if somebody is depressed, they say, but what? Why are you depressed? You have everything you need, everything you have going for you.
Yes.
So why are you depressed? Just get out of that. Check yourself out of that. And it's not that easy, because there is the environmental component in depression, but then there's also the biological factor, the genetic factor, which people have no control over. So it is like, if somebody is depressed and they harm themselves, I don't think that should be a criminal offense.
Most definitely, I totally agree. When society will look at it and some opposing factors, persons will say, okay, so if you're going to decriminalize suicide, wouldn't that increase the rate of suicides? Where persons will think, okay, it's okay, or persons who attempt it will think it's okay. But like you rightfully said, Dr. Jabatis, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that anybody can commit suicide. It doesn't have
Anybody,
Right.
you're
It doesn't
correct.
have to be somebody who's diagnosed with some mental illness. You will say, okay, this one will do it. I will never do it. You cannot say that because,
That's
like
very
you
true.
rightly said, yes.
And
Okay.
on the other side, you made a statement. You said that, which is true. You said that sometimes people might say, but if it's decriminalized, more people will commit suicide, and that can be looked into in different ways, because also, if somebody knows it's a criminal offense, they might make sure they die. If they try to commit the offense, they might make sure do something that's really would cause a death, or because they would not want to go to jail and be embarrassed and their family. So we can look at it both ways.
Okay. Also with the family, because exactly what we are going to discuss here about family support. So imagine if you know that a family member attempted suicide and it is a criminal offense, and now that you are hiding it for this person, of course you'll be aiding and abetting a crime, so of course then you now can be arrested, so
And
persons will not likely want to come forward.
yes, and also in that vein too, you would not seek treatment for your family, because you don't want people to know that they tried to commit suicide. The police might get to know, and then it might be a problem for not only the person who tried to commit suicide, but the family who is aware and did not notify the police.
Most definitely. Yes. As I said earlier, that in St. Lucia, it has been a taboo for suicide. Dr. Shabatis, could you tell us how a family or family members can best help the family member who, whether they've realized this person has a history of depression that may lead to suicide, or whether they've realized that, you know, of late, Janice is not herself. Janice has just been quiet and withdrawn. Or maybe I've just not heard from Janice and it's not like her. So, how best can a family reach out to their family members to help prevent suicide? And also, if somebody has committed suicide, how best can they deal with that situation?
Because knowing the family dynamics, the family might, if they realize that that family member is not that easy to approach, they can try to maybe identify the person in the family or friend with whom they have a good rapport and make that person try to approach them and speak to them. But usually you it's not advised advisable to delve deep into the issues at the first instance. So mainly supportive conversations is important, and also it's important also to seek help if necessary. If you're in doubt, because if somebody is sometimes somebody who wants to commit suicide give you different signals. Some of them are not really obvious, but they give different signals. Like, for example, they start to give away their things, their prized possessions, or they might start calling people to tell them goodbye, not directly goodbye, but in a subtle way, and different things to that effect. So it's important to be able to identify the signs, and it's important also to seek help without feeling embarrassed. And there are ways of getting help. For example, there is a helpline 203. That can be a start. You can call the helpline, and then there would be somebody at the other end of the line advising you as to how you can do.
Okay, thank
So
you
it's
so
very
much.
important. Yeah.
Yes. Um, I recalled recently there was a situation where I heard somebody committed suicide, and it was said, there were no signs. It was this person was out there having fun. Even the night before, they went out, had some fun and all. All they know that is this person went through some financial difficulties or was going through some financial difficulties. But apart from that, there were no signs that this person was depressed or even would have attempted suicide. So, on top of all what you have said, in addition to that, I would say that even when we find out or we know that our family members, they don't seem depressed, but they are going through some difficulties, whether it be a breakup, whether it be some financial difficulty, whatever it may be, keep a close eye on this person and try to engage this person as much as possible to ensure that there's no risk there involved.
But sometimes, well, in the rare occasions, there might not be sign in somebody who's very impulsive. So somebody might just feel like they drink so that when they're sober, they have no intention. But sometimes they just drink because they want to drown their sorrows, and then they do something. They try to kill themselves. And then people who are impulsive, meaning that they act without thinking. So you get some disappointment and you just decide, oh, I'm doing it. Sometimes not even thinking that whatever you're trying is not reversible. So there are those situations, but it is more common that there is a warning sign.
And like you were saying, that the warning signs would be that some of it would be that they're giving away their prized possession, and they might be
And
living.
you said some of them too, like they keep to themselves, they withdraw, they keep to themselves. All of a sudden, they're changing their behavior. That person used to be so um, warm and bubbly, and then all of a sudden they keep to themselves. They want to stay in their room all the time. Their personal hygiene, there are changes in the way they look after themselves. Their appetite, they lose appetite. Sometimes they lose weight because they're not eating. The sleep insomnia is one of the first signs as well of depression if there's an underlying depression. Like they don't sleep well at night, they have difficulties either falling asleep or keeping asleep. So there are some signs that you can recognize and some change in behavior. Whenever somebody has a change in the behavior, it's something to be concerned about.
Definitely. And um, before we continue, we have a comment from Non-Rev Novak of Mr. Casabo. If someone, excuse me, if someone is caught attempting suicide, can they be arrested and charged? If so,
Yes,
why should this person be arrested and charged instead of seeking help for this victim. And this is what we were just discussing earlier. Thank you for that
Yeah.
comment, Mr. Casabo. And I'm happy to know that you are listening. And persons, please feel free to comment, interact, call. We would love to hear from you.
But lucky for us, the police don't really enforce it, which is very good. If somebody tries to commit suicide and the police is called, what they do and what I commend them about is that they bring them for help. They take
Definitely.
them to a psychiatrist, they take them to the hospital, they take them somewhere for help. They don't charge them and arrest them and that kind of thing, at least not in the first instance. And most times they do not do it, which is very good. So that shows that they have a little understanding that suicide is a health condition that should be addressed, and you should not be punished for suicide or attempting suicide.
Most definitely. And I do think that before, maybe even before we had all this information, because we know that education is key,
Mhm.
that persons would think that, okay, the law, let me use the law to scare people or to prevent people from doing this act. So I'm guessing this why this law was put in place, not so that they would really charge persons, become make them become criminals, but really as a deterrent for not committing suicide or aiding and abetting suicide. Yeah,
But that law is so archaic; it has been there forever. And I mean, as health advances and different things advances in health, then we need to change with time, move with time. It's dynamic, so we have to move with time.
most definitely, definitely. So can you tell me if, okay, you have somebody at home, you realize again, we're going back to being depressed, and there are some of the signs, and this person is home. How are some of the ways that we could try to keep this person safe?
Well, I sometimes it's difficult based on the dynamics of the family, but for sure, if somebody comes to me, for example, they depressed and I send them home. Like a lot of people, if there is sufficient family support at home, it is advised to keep them at home. The less hospitalization possible is what is advised. So if you have family support, for example, you have somebody at home who can keep an eye, because at this point in time they have to understand that your door has to stay open, your room door. Because when you reach the doctor, we said, okay, we're not going to admit you. But then we have to have a little agreement when you go home. And one of them is that you need to have family, you need to have support around you, especially in the most critical time, which is immediately after the thoughts or the attempt. So what we do also in terms of, because sometimes the patients can use the same medication that you prescribed for them to commit suicide. So you need to bear that in mind. And what we do is that we prescribe sometimes just 1 week at a time, like a short supply at a time, 3 days, 1 week, and then they keep coming for to replenish the supply, or we put a repeat on the prescription. So the pharmacist would give you 1 week supply, and when it's done, then the family go for another week supply. Also, the families at home need to put things in place like to keep away the things that they can use, because there's pills, there's poison, there's disinfectants, and all these kind of things. So it's a big task, but they need to keep them away for them at least during the time when it's critical, and keep an eye on them, and these kind of things that they need to do. Keep them away from sometimes the toxic content when they're looking on movies and the kind of music and that kind of thing, which would make them even more depressed or more toxic and that kind of thing. It would make the situation more toxic for them. So they need to try to keep away from that. From social media, sometimes you need to stay off it for a little while, because sometimes there's cyberbullying that a lot of adolescents go through, and then sometimes they need to stay away from social media for a while as well.
Most definitely. And I was reading, just to reiterate what you said, how to make the home safe, that you can make sure guns or other weapons are not accessible at home, keep alcohol and other drugs out of the home, store medications safely, work with your family member and their care team, including the pharmacist, to make sure they do not have access to large quantities of medication, lock up pesticides and other dangerous household chemicals, remove access to sharp objects such as knives and razor blades if possible. So just to reiterate
Yes.
what you
Iterate.
reiterate, sorry, I'm getting
Iterate.
tired.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
what you just said, Dr. Jabatis. Thank you so much for that. And once we were speaking, I was just thinking of um, our young persons out there. Sometimes we get a lot of suicidal ideation from our young persons. Could you explain to the public the process when a child comes in? Reason I'm doing that again, Dr. Shabat, is because most times you find a young person comes, or a parent would take a young person to you, that this person has suicidal ideation. And the process would be that you would send this person for a referral to ensure that it's not anything physical, it's psychological, and then sent up for an assessment. But when it comes to going up to the wellness center, you would hear parents saying, I'm not taking my child there. My child is not mad. My child is not crazy. I'm not taking there. They just medicate children as soon as they reach there, and all the stigma attached to the wellness center. So please shed some light.
Well, because there is mental disorders or mental health problems which can be either psychotic, which is serious mental health disorders, and there is the neurotic side, which is like depression and anxiety. But whether it is psychotic and is, I think people when they talk about the wellness center, they think about the psychotic part of the mental illness, when people sometimes lose touch with reality and they hallucinate, and sometimes they see things. But even the psychotic part of the mental illness, some of them can be reversible and sometimes can be curable depending on the cause. But then there's the other aspect on which most people worldwide suffer from the neurotic part, but people just don't seek help because of the stigma. Because somebody have anxiety disorder or depression, and that person, you see them in society and they're normal, functioning normal, working normal, looking normal, speaking normal. But then they have these um, cognition sometimes that make them, for when somebody's depressed, they feel sad, they like have no energy and all that kind of thing. And if you leave them without getting help for them, then it can affect them, their occupation, their work, and in cases of children, it can affect their school grades and everything to that effect. So it is very important. Everybody has a physical side of the health, and everybody has a mental side of the health. 100% of people have a mental aspect of the health. So we have just the same way our physical is sometimes compromised, and we have high blood pressure, we have diabetes, we have cholesterol, we have asthma. The mental side can be compromised and can be temporarily compromised. And even if it is not temporarily, it can be something that is treatable, and then you can continue your carrying on your normal everyday life. But it's just stigma because I think, I don't know, in terms of the how people viewed mental health, mental illness in the past, that kind of prison setting, and people had to stay in prison. And I think some of the old medication that was used for psychosis used to cause side effects. So I think that had an impact on people. And then also the stigma, like everybody, people, I think that is something that you can control and that kind of thing. So I think everything put together. But for example, Princess Diana had a depression, right? She has a mood disorder. And I think she was even suicidal. She said she was feeling suicidal, and she's a normal person. How does she look? And there are so many celebrities who have mental illness, they have bipolar disorder, and they function totally normal. So it's just to get that balance in your mental health and so that you can function normally. So I think the parents are doing the children an injustice by not seeking help for them.
I would totally agree. And we go to Princess Diana and all that, but right here
Mm-hmm,
in St. Lucia, there are
mm-hmm,
persons in top positions, who
Yes.
hold top positions in
Mm-hmm.
society, and they
Mm-hmm.
do have some mental illness, and you would find that some disorder, and you find that with medication they are able to function effectively in
First.
society.
Yeah.
So
It's
yes.
like somebody who's hypertensive with medication, they function. If they don't take their medication, they can get a stroke, they can get a heart attack. So the same with mental health disorders. We just need to like try to get rid of the stigma, and I know it's difficult, it's easier said than done. But I think in the developed countries, people are showing understanding now compared to before. And then some people they like to say, "Oh, I'm bipolar, or I'm depressed, or I'm on Prozac," you know. So they share their medical information without so much stigma. But I think here it's still we have a long way to go so that we can get rid of that stigma.
Most definitely. And I want to say to parents as well, and of course, Dr. Jabatis, you will correct me if I'm wrong. I will want to say to parents as well, that doesn't necessarily mean that if your child has suicidal ideation, that they will be medicated. That
Exactly,
when you do the
exactly.
assessment, that
Mm,
they don't necessarily get medication.
no.
Sometimes they need some form of counseling, some form of therapy, not
Mhm.
always medication,
Yes.
as we think.
And sometimes the medication will not even be for, it's a short term. It's
Yeah,
not for the rest of your life if you're medicated. Yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
All right. So, thank you again, Mr. Kazabo. There is that stigma attached to the wellness center because of the lack of educating the population on the services offered at the institution. So, we're going to invite persons from the wellness center to come and educate the public on our next program about the procedures that take place so the stigma can be lessened. Okay. So, Dr. Shabat, is not only you, but you and your team will
Yes.
be invited some other time to come on board. Thank you.
And the good thing is that the treatment at the wellness center is free. So people prefer not to say we don't have that barrier that they cannot afford it because it's free treatment. You get the you get the assessment from the doctors, you get the counseling, you get the medication if necessary, and if available, you get all that for free. So
Very
I think it
much so.
is, yeah.
And I can safely say without disclosing um, any confidential information that I have had a client, a young person who has been through the same procedure and came back and said, Miss, that was one of the best decisions. I went there, and right now it has helped me so much that I've discontinued certain behaviors that I was portraying. So,
Uh,
of course, yeah.
and I have a few young people who've had depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and they've done very, very well. And they're out there, they're functioning normal. Nobody has to know that they have anything. And if it's like a chronic mental illness like bipolar disorder, then you as gradually the amount of medication they take goes down, it reduces until you get to that amount that is just necessary to maintain. Just a low dose to maintain you okay and stable. And you function, you do everything, you go for your family life, you get married, you can have children, you can do everything.
Yes,
And you're fine.
yeah. Um, you would find, well, speaking directly to, well, persons who have suicidal ideation and thinking about it. So something that I want to see is that most people, when they're going for certain problems, it's all about myself. It becomes self-centered. It becomes the whole world. It's me against the whole world. And I'm not seeing, I'm at a dead end. There's no way out of this. Okay. And they take this problem to themselves and don't want to involve anybody, saying that I'm not going to burden anybody with my problems, I'll deal with it. But in truth and in fact, when you deal with it by taking your life, you are in fact burdening your loved ones. And I don't think persons look at it that way. Because when you go and you take your life, of course, the grief, the trauma, and if you were owing somebody, this person will still come to look for that money from your family. So of course, your family will still have to find that payment for this person, or whatever the case was. Your family will still have to step in and take account of what it was that you did. So you are just basically taking yourself out of it, but the same burden you didn't want to put on your family is indeed on your family. So I want to put it out there. So suicide has a ripple effect. So when you commit suicide, you kill yourself, of course the repercussions of what you did, it continues. So just want to put that out there for persons. Anything you want to
But
add?
yeah, but sometimes people feel like when they feel major depression, so they sometimes it goes down to what they call melancholic. They feel so melancholic and they feel so immobilized they cannot even think clearly.
Yeah.
That is why that's why we say that. I mean, at some point they cannot even think logically. So that's why it's always important to have some. There's a point where they have to have somebody there with them. Should they have the momentarily decision that they're going to kill myself right now, somebody has to be there or they have to be hospitalized.
Yes, definitely. We have a question here, Dr. Jabatis. This one is definitely from you for you from Eustatius Eugene. Thank you for joining in. Why should they discharge a patient from the mental wellness center who has not recovered and is doing worse in the community after being discharged? This is
So
from
you're talking about suicide now, right?
yes.
Okay. So the thing is that doing what's in the community, I that could be based on what assessment? Because people in general, psychiatry is moving away from institutionalizing people, just keeping people in an institution. At first, it used to happen before, but not anymore because people have rights, people have a right to a quality of life and whatever. But many of our patients, they have the issue of, or many patients with mental health disorders have the issue of the substance abuse. Substance abuse. So when they're during admission, they have no access to substances, they get well, they compliant to medication. But then what so they're doing well in there. Before they discharge, they stabilize and they're doing well. But the thing is that when they go out there, it's important for the support in the community, the family support. Because some of them decide that they're just not going to take any medication, any treatment. Some of them go to drugs, and the some of the drugs have a negative effect, not on everybody. I know people like to smoke, and I will keep saying that it is not good for their health, but then it affects people differently. Some people smoke and nothing might happen to them. Smoke marijuana and nothing might happen to them. Maybe the majority of people, nothing might happen to them in terms of mental health, mental illness. But then there are people that smoke and they get psychotic, they hallucinate, they misbehave. So that is the issue. Now we don't have control of people when they're out there. When they're in the hospital, we know for sure they don't get the drugs to smoke. They get the medication. Most times they accept it orally. But going out there is the issue. So the community support and family support, I think, is very important for them. We cannot keep a young person who's 25, 28 locked up for the rest of their life. It's not a prison, it's a hospital.
Very well said, Dr. Jabatis. And part of the reason, Dr. Jabatis, that I actually read this comment because I want to bring
Mm-hmm.
back what you're talking about is family support. Yes, it is
Mm-hmm.
not suicide, but I'm happy that this person put it there. Because what happens, Dr. Jabatis, and of course, I can speak of it as a former colleague of yours, persons at wellness center. So what happens with persons with mental illness, persons who are there, they do not have much family support, and
Right.
that is the issue. They do not have much family support, and as you said, they don't have much community support
Community
as well.
support, yeah.
Yes,
And
so
the thing is that because of the mental illness, they cannot get a job. So they caught between a rock and a hard place. They cannot get a job because of the same stigma attached to them because they can do some of them, even if I mean they can do jobs like other people out in the community, but just because of the stigma, they refuse jobs sometimes. And then their family don't support them. So how can they survive?
Very
Yeah,
well.
how can they?
And as persons are saying that um, some persons do not have family support, and this is very true. We in St. Lucia, like you're saying, Dr. Shabatis, we do not have a set place that you could say, okay, we have this institution where we're going to keep patients. I was working at the wellness center, and I know that sometimes there's not space.
You're
Okay,
right.
and you have to discharge patients to make space for the persons
Yeah.
who are coming in. I know that
It's
firsthand.
a hospital. It's like saying
Exactly.
if somebody has cancer, you have to keep them at OKU for the rest of their life. That's not how it is. It's a hospital, and the hospital doesn't have an infinite amount of bed space. You have to discharge to get space for more people, and also the bed capacity depends on so many different things. Because we have a few, we out of the patients at the wellness center. So, so 35% of them are just there because abandoned. You
Mhm.
know, people don't come to look for them again. And we have, so let's say we have, let's 35%, like we have 100 beds. We don't have that. For example, if you have 100 beds and 35% of people are people that live there because their family have left them there. So that means only 65 beds you have. So out of the 65 beds, everybody wants everybody who's out there to be there on the bed. So that means we will not have space to admit people who have acute illness. So that
Exactly.
is the issue. It's not an indefinite amount of beds and beds. We have it's a limited amount of beds.
Just
And
as
also we
just
have to abide by the World Health Organization also keeping people away from being we have to improve people quality of life all the time. And hospitalization when you don't need is like imprisoning you and you have not committed a crime.
most definitely.
Yeah.
And what is sad, Dr. Jabat, is especially in our line of work, we see it
Mm-hmm.
firsthand that somebody will be out there or even abandoned at the hospital, and you will hear no family support. Lo and
Mm-hmm.
behold, this person passes away. And let me tell you, Dr. Jabatis, you will be amazed.
Mm-hmm.
This announcement, the
So
amount
many family
family.
members. Right.
Oh, and the
That's
funeral is
true.
very grand.
Yes.
Same
Yeah.
person had no support, no family to come forward. It is really disheartening. It's
Mm-hmm.
really disheartening.
And
Yes.
there are other issues too, like sometimes that person has some kind of thing, some kind of benefit, and that's the only time you see them. If they need to get some kind of benefit from that person, maybe that person has some property or that person has something, but otherwise you just don't see family.
Okay.
And that is very sad. That's so sad.
Question, Dr. Jabatis, for persons out there. I know the answer because, of course, like I said, I worked with you. But questions for somebody for the purpose of, especially for you, Mr. Eugene. Do
Mm.
you do does the wellness center encourage family to come in to be educated by the doctors on how to care for the patients out there in the community?
That's from me or from Mr. Eugene.
For you, question.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we do. We educate, like especially if there's some other people come in all the time, so we know them. We've met their family, but we still try to contact the family or liaise with the family for every admission. But then, especially for the new ones, we need to call them in, try to encourage that kind of family support and that kind of thing. It happens because when the patients have family support, they do much better. And we find that the females have a lot more family support for some reason than the males, and the females do better. The females have less of that issue with smoking as well. The comorbid diagnosis of substance abuse is less in the females, so they do much better than the male patients.
Okay. Thank you so much. But moving on to again, we're looking at family support and family support for suicide patients. Not only we look at family as in persons who live inside of your house, but family
Mhm.
support, we look at even community support.
Of course,
Because
yes.
yes, community support, because you find again, like we spoke about the taboo, that persons, okay, so if somebody committed suicide at my house, no longer will the neighbor want to come by my home. No
Mm.
longer the pastor will say, I don't think you should come to our church anymore. Because you find a lot of mental illness is associated to evil spirits,
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
demonic demons and possession and so on. So speak to us a little on that, Dr. Jean-Baptiste, in terms
Yeah.
of um, the belief that some
Yeah.
persons may have that mental illness is associated to demonic possession.
Demon possession, and so many times, they just say, "Oh, that one has a demon. That one is possessed by demons," and they even have people in the community who say that they specialize in extracting demons from people. Sometimes they keep them overnight and things. But as far as I know, if there was a time, even epilepsy, seizures was associated with demon possession as well, and so as mental illness. But as the science was improved, people realized that epilepsy was a problem caused by the irritability of the cortex and whatever. But with mental illness, many people still believe that people are possessed. Some people come, I see them privately, and they come and they take the medication, they better, but they still believe that it's a demon that their family have. That is why, and they believe somebody did it to them for whatever reason. So I really don't argue with them because that part I don't really know much about. So I cannot argue and say it's not true or it's true, but I know that what I can tell them is that I know something that can help and I'm going to give it to you and it will help.
Most definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also, Miss Bondiemaitre, in terms of support, it's also important to get support from government. Governments in terms of policies, enacting policies, and also resources, allocated resources to different aspects of mental illness, mental health problems. I
Mhm.
think that is very, very important because if we don't have the resources, we don't have the policies like the suicidal, decriminalizing suicide, then it can be a great issue. So we really need the support of the government as well.
We most definitely do, because I've always said we should not be reactive, we should be proactive.
Proactive, right?
Something similar. I like last night I heard that more police officers, I think some, I'm not sure, they were hiring more police officers and maybe that would help
Mm-hmm.
reduce crime. But
Mm-hmm.
why not hire more social workers as well?
Mm-hmm.
Because in St. Lucia we are under the belief that there's a shortage of social workers, and it's not. That is not the case. There are not enough social workers hired, but there
Mm-hmm.
are persons with degrees in social work, but they're not being hired. They're out there. So if we don't hire social workers, we don't hire counselors to deal with these issues
Mm-hmm.
from the bottom, of course we'll have to deal with it from the top. Because when we have these young children who do not have the support, who do not have the places to go, the psychosocial support that they need, of course when they get older they will become criminals, and of course the police has to come into play. So we have to work with persons who are going to assist in order to help.
But there are so many issues that stem from growing up and childhood and inadequate resources. So I mean, it is more social workers. I agree, we need more social workers, but then but we also need to try to stem, like, nip whatever is happening in the bud as well in terms of families, and maybe more social workers can do that. Yeah. Nip what's happening because among there's a lot of things, child abuse that's going on, child abuse, and then these children later on develop personality disorders. They get borderline personality disorders, they different kind of personality disorders, and then these children with personality disorders then attempt suicide even more. So we have to stem what's going on. We have to take care of children from the household, from the homes.
And we need more
The homes
resources to
also.
work with.
Yeah.
Definitely need more resources to work with, because when we get the cases and we don't have the proper resources, how do we effectively do our jobs? How do we effectively help persons? So all that need to be taken into consideration. Something I was looking at also, a chain of events, again with the support from the community. When you find, for example, like I was saying, a child attempted suicide. When this child returns to school, this child is bullied.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it can happen. I'm not saying that it is happening. It
Mm-hmm.
can happen that this child is bullied at school. You find even persons who are in authority who are supposed to know better would make certain comments. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and in the homes, like even the family members, some of them would shun that child. We go ahead, Shabbat.
No, go ahead.
We need to
Some
support.
water.
We need to support this individual by, of course, assisting this child, being supportive of this child by giving that child an avenue to be able to express his or herself. We have the counselors at the schools, even the teacher, if the child is willing to speak to somebody they trust, listen to this child, family members, persons at home, listen to this individual. Helping somebody does not mean, okay, I'm going to put you down and give you a lecture. That is not always what, or not what the person needs. Sometimes by you just sitting and listening to this person vent is helping.
And the
Okay.
other thing is that what the way we have to be careful the way we say things to people, especially if somebody already has a fragile mental health situation. If we shouldn't be judgmental and say, "Oh, why are you doing that? Why you disappointing me?" You know, that kind of thing. You shouldn't be judgmental, and also people in authority need to also try to their best to respect confidentiality because sometimes, especially teenagers, adolescents, they kind of self-centered a bit, self-centered in inverted commas. So they would, sometimes they just believe everybody would be speaking about them or discussing their situation, kind of thing. So you have to be careful who you tell, even if all the teachers. I mean, sometimes you tell one teacher, and I'm not pointing on any situation. I'm just
Yep.
generalizing, right? Sometimes one teacher would tell another teacher because they say that's okay, that's just a child and whatever, and then the teacher who told would expect that person to be confidential, but that person would not be confidential and so many people would know. So that's why some of the children don't even feel comfortable with certain going for help in different places because they think people are not confidential. So it's very important to be confidential because in the long run, what you're trying to do is to save a life.
most
Okay,
def-
it's not that. Yeah.
Most definitely. And of course, persons who have the strong spiritual background, they have their religions, their churches. um the churches can come together the church can come together as a second family and say, okay, let's pray for this family, let's go out and let's sit with this family, let's do stuff. Because too many times the family is let alone to deal with this issue on their own. Not much help is given to this family because, of course, know that there will be the shame attached if it goes out there that my child kill, God forbid, my child kill himself or herself, or my child attempted his or her life. Persons will find out and the shame associated. So you find that some of the family members do not go out to seek help. Yeah.
And people also they tend to judge the family when a family member try to commit suicide. But it doesn't have to be anything that's happening, it can just be something genetic, like they're going through depression now and they feel they cannot cope and they want to kill themselves. But it doesn't have to be that, oh, that family doesn't take care of them, they don't look after them and that kind of thing. It does not have to. So when you judge the family now, the family too would not want to bring the person for help because people will be judging them out there. So
Most definitely. And something else, I want to mention that some family members will tell you that we have done all we can. We have called 203, we have done everything. But have you taken this person for an assessment? You'll hear to the wellness center or somewhere, you will hear, me, the person does not want to go.
mhm.
How can you assist? A question to you, Dr. Jabatis. What do you think can be done to assist somebody who clearly has suicidal ideation, but who is refusing help?
um, so sometimes they're refusing help because they don't want to go to the wellness center, the National Mental Wellness Center. But there are different outlets. although not as many as would like, but in the community, because there's a community psychiatric program that they can go to the community to any of the wellness centers in the community, and they can see the DMO too. They can see the DMO, and then the DMO would connect them to the community psychiatric program if necessary, so that they can get help. They don't have to necessarily go to the wellness. Also, they can go to any of the general, if they feel it's suicidal, they can go to any of the hospitals. They can go to OKEO, they can go to Victoria Hospital or St. Jude, and then they can be connected because there's a referral system that can happen.
Thank you so very much for that. And adding on to that, Dr. Jabatis, families also can reach out to the this is at the wellness centers in the communities, because there's a psychiatric nurse, a team, the psychiatric team
Yes.
who comes to the
Mhm.
different communities. So sometimes when a patient does not want to, or a family member does not want to go to the hospital, they can call the doctor, they can call the wellness center and ask whether the psychiatric nurse and the doctor can come to the patient. So that happens as well.
And they can call 203, don't forget, 203, and
Okay.
they can be advised.
Okay. And 203 is a free call. You don't have to
Mhm.
have credit on your phone to call 203. All
And you
right.
can call from Digicel, from Flow, from Landline, from any phone.
Definitely. Mr. Eustace Eugene, thank you so very much for all your comments, which I'm not going to read all. We're having a program on suicide, so please feel free to comment on suicide. When indeed we're having the program for mental health, of course, we will address all your questions, or feel free to address your questions to the mental wellness, National Mental Wellness Center. Okay. Yes. So, Dr. Jabatis, thank you so much. Um, we're almost at the end of our program. So, persons, I'm hoping that you're listening in. If you have any question, comments, feel free to come out there and express your thoughts regarding suicide. And yes, so this afternoon, Dr. Jabatis and I again are going on a webinar discussing
Mhm.
um, suicide. So we're looking at changing the narrative, and this is now what we're speaking about. Of course, changing your mindset on suicide,
Mhm.
because when I grew
Mhm.
up, I saw that suicide was this huge sin, that
Mhm.
that if you commit suicide, it's almost like you and your entire household will be burned down to the ground. So now I'm happy with education that things
Mhm.
are definitely changing. Any last thoughts, Dr. Jabatis?
Yeah, so I just want everybody to remember today, the 10th of September, and every 10th of September is World Suicide Prevention. At least that day they can maybe try to recognize, realize that suicide is an illness, is not suicide, depression, and all its causes are illnesses, and it is not something that somebody deliberately does. And then if you have any family out there or any friend or anybody you know suffering with suicidal tendencies, it's very important to try your best to give them the support that is needed or to direct them. Remember 203, they can call 203 so that they can get advice. But it's important not to be judgmental and then realize that suicide is something that affects the entire world. 720,000 people every year commit. So that's a serious one.
Definitely. Thank you so very much for that, Dr. Jabatis. Feel free to join us on our webinar this afternoon at 2. It is posted for the password, the passcode, and all to join. Hoping that you listen in. It's very important. Do not take it for granted that, hey, this is not going to happen to me, or this is not going to happen to my family members. Education is key. Learn as much as possible so you can help your loved ones or even yourself at some point. Okay, so
And suicide, especially for men, it does not mean that you're weak. It does not mean that you're weak at all. It means that you're human. That's what it means.
Thank you for that,
Yeah.
Dr. Shmatis, because yes, men with this ego that always ends up in the way of getting help. So feel free to get help. And as I said, you don't have to go to the wellness center. Like Dr. Shmatis said, you can reach out to your wellness centers in your community, reach out to your community nurses, and they will guide you because there is a psychiatric team who comes down to the different what we call our health centers, to our different health centers. They do come down, so you can find out the different days they come, reach out to the nurses, book down your appointments. And if the person cannot go to the health center, of course, you can ask the psychiatric team to come to you. If it is possible, they will. So there is help out there. Friends, family members, community members get help for one another because no man is an island. We need each other. So when you realize that, hey, I've not seen Susan, and Susan was always walking down the road, find out, give her a call. Don't only give her a call to say, so Susan have a new man. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's that's what, yes, that's what we'll get. It's just like you post on your status, Dr. Jabatis, you post on your status.
Married.
Every day you put in God loves me and all. Nobody comments. It's the day
Mm-hmm.
you post your picture with a guy. Oh my goodness.
Everybody be interested.
Yes.
Let's hope.
Yes. So it's just like so it is similar to the community or even family where
Mm-hmm.
you need to reach out not only to give the little gossip, but reach out to find out, but I have not heard from so and so. Let me just reach out to find out what's going on. And if something is happening with your family member or even persons in your community, don't be like, that's not my business.
Mm-hmm.
Out of that.
But people tend to pay attention when the person commits the act or when they die. That's when you get
Yes.
all the attention. Oh, I'm sorry, rest in peace. He was
Again,
good, he was
we
this,
are
but then when the
reactive
person
people
is
and not
suffering, yeah,
proactive.
nobody.
Yes. We are very reactive and not proactive,
Mm-hmm.
which is very sad. We need to become more proactive. So
Mm-hmm.
not reach out to the family after the person is gone. Yeah, so reach out before. Thank you again so very much, Dr. Jabatis, for being here with me. And of course, we'll be meeting again this afternoon. Thank
Thank
you.
you. It was really good being here.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
thank you so very much, listeners. Have a blessed day. Okay. Thank you. Yes. And that mouse. Okay.